Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tastemakers podcast. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong. We are here, as always, to talk through what's been happening in the world of TV and film. And with me today, of course, my co-host, Grace. How you doing, Grace?
I'm doing well. Well, I'm doing well. I've slightly recovered from the Toronto Blue Jays losing the World Series in the most heartbreaking fashion that's ever happened in the history of playoffs. It's probably the worst I've ever felt after a
Mm.
baseball game. So that was bad, but otherwise, I'm fine.
I did watch two innings, the final two innings of that game, because everyone was freaking out about it. I was like, you know what? Let me check out this baseball thing. It's been a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah, they are able to they've gone back and done a bunch of data on in terms of tracking like win probability changes depending on things that happen in games. And this one had the most changes in terms of which team was more likely to win in a single game. There's 9 times where it flipped from LA to Toronto. And so it just sucks to be on the losing end of the inevitable outcome, but what a season. It was amazing. Probably going to be like one of the most watched things. And I mean, sports is like incredibly popular. I think a lot of people say like when Toronto's in a World Series, probably like wouldn't do well numbers wise. It did incredibly well. It went to Game 7. So
Well,
no,
I haven't, like I said, I haven't watched baseball in like well
yeah, there you
over a
go.
decade. It was all I could hear about for the last couple of weeks was like Shohei Ohtani and the Blue Jays, and I know they're on separate teams, but like on different ends of it, the Blue Jays
Unfortunately,
had their run, and Shohei Ohtani, of course,
yeah,
doing his thing, um, and so yeah, they wore me down, and I watched two innings,
very cool.
10-11.
That's okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you saw the extra innings.
Yeah.
They weren't even extra. They were for you. No, super very much like the most fun I've had in the city in a while in terms of just like everybody watching this one thing that we're all rooting for so hard. And it is over and we'll have to get over that, but it was very fun thing that happened. So, yeah, a little bit less TV watching I think for me than normal, but I've seen a lot of movies, Terrence, so we can chat.
Mm. Yes, I have not watched much still. Still working on the TV issue. Hopefully now just a couple weeks away because we had another delay, but it is what it is. And now you might ask, Taran, you can still watch things on a computer, on whatever else. And to that, I would say, yes, I can, but it's not as fun.
Yeah, fair
I'm in
enough.
it for the fun.
Yeah. That's okay. There's plenty of I think this can be kind of fun where I'll be like, this is what I watched, and we can gauge your reaction to whether or not you will at some point watch it or not. Because I feel like I was talking to somebody like there's a lot of movies out right now, and I feel like have not had enough time, especially with the Blue Jays on, because like those games are starting at 8. So like I
Mm.
love like a 7 p.m. movie, and it just like didn't work for the last week or so. And then like I'll be so excited about a movie that's coming out, and then it'll come out, and I'll hear like it's fine, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's good that I didn't go to every movie that that got released. So yeah,
Yeah, I do have a growing backlog, especially as we'll talk about with Pluribus coming up. That's really one where I'm like, I really want to be watching it, but I definitely don't want to be watching it on a broken TV.
hmm
So that's an annoying one. I really was hoping I'd have a TV ready to watch it in time, but we'll see how it goes. But let's talk about any news that you wanted to bring up. I know sort of the big
yeah.
thing that everyone's been talking about is the Taylor Sheridan thing. I don't know how much I care about it because I'm not a big Taylor Sheridan guy at this point, but it is like another one of these like massive, massive deals that have been brokered that, of course, have like ramifications for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about it, I do think like the shows that Taylor Sheridan produces fall a little bit outside of like the Venn diagram of stuff that you and I watch. I feel like it's outside of both of our circles to some. I've watched a ton of Yellowstone. I don't think I finished Yellowstone, but I watched a lot of it. I really haven't watched much else. I know people like Special Ops Lioness, and some of the other adjacent shows. But what I do think is interesting about it is NBC bought it, and to clarify what it means, actually, he's actually not leaving CBS from the TV side of things. His deal with NBC is actually from the movie side of things. He will make some movies, and then in 2028, I believe, is when his deal comes up, and it's very pretty much expected that he'll then move over and make television for NBC. But CBS will keep all of Yellowstone, Special Ops Lioness, Landman, any of the stuff that got created under CBS is staying unless they worked out some sort of deal, which I don't think that they will do because it's basically one of the reasons people subscribe to Paramount. But what I think is interesting about the deal is just that we had this like the streaming boom and all of these streamers who became not just having platforms but creating content, creating television and movies, and it feels like we're in like the waning days of that happening as much as it was. And yet there are these like deals that are popping up where like a creator is really sought after, and I think we're on the verge of Stranger Things. I feel like the other thing that's happening right now, Taryn, we could talk about this a little bit. Like so many people I know are rewatching all of Stranger Things, gearing up for the new season to come out later this month. But the Duffer Brothers have moved. They moved to Warner Brothers Discovery for a movie deal, and now you have this Taylor Sheridan deal, which I don't think it's quite as big at the moment, but it is. They're probably overpaying. NBC is probably overpaying, but they're going to get to put a bunch of new Taylor Sheridan stuff on their, I presume on NBC proper, and then eventually Peacock. So
Yeah, it's a deal of it says up to $1 billion, as much as $1 billion, depending on sort of how much he makes, I guess, in terms of like how much he produces, I should say. Um, but yeah, as you mentioned, it's for him, the creative, not for like any of his current properties.
yeah,
So that's massive. I will say, I think Taylor Sheridan as a movie maker, as a filmmaker, I like much more than him as a TV show maker,
yeah,
because I like his TV shows for like 2 or 3 episodes, and then I get bored. But that's about as good a that's about a movie length. So, I think that could be fun. Obviously, another big part of this is that, this whole thing for NBC and Peacock, theoretically, this is another investment into, Peacock, as a service, on top of, like, the other stuff they're doing, which signals that they're not willing to sort of like consolidate anytime soon. Which, of course, is starting. We're starting to see some hints of that with Hulu and Disney, and we already talked about they had like made a deal with Disney, I believe. So some interesting stuff there, but we'll see where it goes. Is kind of the ultimate angle for me, at least.
Peacock also bought a bunch of NBA rights. So like
Right.
Peacock isn't going anywhere. Peacock is not one of the streaming service. And I'm not telling people to buy stock, but like in the metaphoric, like what streamers am I buying stock in? Like
Mhm.
I'm not. I might sell my Peacock, but it's not like going away, as opposed to I don't think Apple's going away. I don't think Amazon's going. I do think like yeah, there are these like other ones that I think are potentially don't have as much of a like a library. And
You would assume Paramount is one of the ones on the ropes, but they have historically had like a little bit of an established bump of users, I think. And they do have some like strong performers. One of them was Taylor Sheridan, but his content will still live there. But
and they
obviously they've
and
had a
they
lot of other issues.
and they can keep making like they're not doing Yellowstone, but they're doing I think like Dutton Ranch, which I think is just like Yellowstone without Costner attached, really. Like it's just Yellowstone under a different name. 1923 and 1883, all these other stuff. They can continue to make these, and they don't need Taylor Sheridan at all involved at all to do it. So they'll still have Yellowstone, adjacent content. But yeah, his movies. Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I think I've seen one that I like really love. He has a movie coming out in 2 years called Fast, but I feel like the Sicario stuff and Hell or High Water are his high marks in terms of like
I thought Hell or
writing.
High Water was great. I think Wind River I thought was very good.
See, that's
Um,
2017. Like, so we're like you know,
Well, then he basically like after
and he
Wind
moves to
River,
TV. Yeah.
he started making TV. No, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Well, he does 2 movies in 2021, and he writes a movie in 20. Oh no, he's just the producer on a movie in
He
2020.
did write Sicario: Day of the Soldado, which
He's also writing Call of Duty movie that's coming out TBD.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, it is interesting in terms of like, I think it's probably, if you look at it, it's probably like a big overpay by NBC, but at the same time, I don't know. I get it. I guess is I think how I think like if they get one major hit out of him, it's probably worth it. So we'll see. Yeah.
All right. Any other news?
There's some stuff. Netflix is this was a little bit before we came back last time, after a little bit of a break, but we never really talked about it. But Netflix, bought a bunch of podcasts to put on Netflix. So the Ringer podcast, there's a bunch of them. I think like the Rewatchables and some Bill Simmons stuff that he's actually on, is going to Netflix, which to me is such a sign that, once again, that as we're talking about these other streamers, Netflix isn't really competing with other streamers as much as it is competing with YouTube. And YouTube is a place that, as you and I know, there has been this like big move for podcasts to like be on video, over the last years, because so many people, this is how they watch podcasts, is through the video form on YouTube. People are watching us on YouTube now. And so I think it's a really interesting move. I mean, Netflix had the gaming stuff, which I feel like has never really ever taken. Have you played a single Netflix game
No.
ever, Taran?
The
I played this.
gaming thing never made sense to me.
Me either. I played like the Squid Game one, but that was fine. But I wasn't like, gotta spend all my time on the Netflix Squid Game game. So yeah, that one didn't make sense to me. But podcasting is really interesting to move to.
Yeah, well, I mean, my first instinct was like, that's silly. But the more I think about it, like, it actually does make a ton of sense. Especially when you know that like Netflix has long kind of developed shows for the express purpose of being second monitored. I know that when I'm browsing YouTube, which I'm doing a lot of because I don't mind watching YouTube with a broken TV.
Yes.
I'm just throwing stuff on, and sometimes like a good long podcast that's just on while I'm doing other stuff is kind of chill. And so if Netflix is hoping to be that, especially if the podcasts are about TV as a sort of like lead in or a sort of or intro, um, it just makes a ton of sense. Like yeah, you just throw on a podcast on Netflix. You don't have to leave. You don't have to go to YouTube to do something like that. I could see that being pretty successful.
Well, you can see the world where they're gonna ask Bill Simmons, like, will you do the rewatchable episode on this movie that we have on Netflix that will be recommended to you as soon as you finish watching said movie? These are like, the world of like Talking Dead feels like that
Mhm.
makes sense too, where like you have these podcasts that are adjacent to the actual products. Like, uh, what Stranger Things podcast could they put on their platform that like then you're consuming the Stranger Things content even after you've watched Stranger Things? And I do have to say, Tara, just in case anybody from Netflix is listening, we are for sale. we, we will happily be on. I will speak for myself. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's just very interesting of what I think, mostly from how Netflix perceives themselves in terms of what they are, which is obviously, yes, they make television and movies, but they obviously want to be more as well. And the biggest competitor to being more is YouTube, not Peacock.
Yeah. I could see this, yeah, I think it and it doesn't even need to be directly related to the content. I really think that like if you're looking for people to just throw stuff on, you have a podcast category, and now you're just throwing on any random podcast on your TV while you're going about doing your day, whatever you're gonna be doing. Um, and given that they are trying to compete with Netflix, like especially if the experience, what I will say is that their UI is not as good as as YouTube's in terms of
100%.
like finding stuff like that or being recommended things like that. So that's a huge issue for them, obviously. But like if they can clean that up, but also then have a slightly better experience in the sense that they don't have ads, although they do have an ad tier. And yeah, you can pay for YouTube Premium, but I would imagine that the people who pay for YouTube Premium are like the ratio of people that pay for YouTube versus users of YouTube is a lot lower than people who pay for an ad-free version of Netflix. And so if you're like, wow, I can watch this podcast on YouTube, or I can watch it on Netflix and not have ads because I already pay for that version of Netflix and I don't pay for YouTube. You start to get a little competitive there because you do offer a lot more premium content. There's something there.
Yeah. And then last thing, just before we came on, I think Jon Stewart, it got announced that he's inked another year of doing one night a week. He'll continue, I presume, to do Mondays and rotating through, which I think is makes sense. I think I feel like it's injected some life back into the Daily Show that was maybe on its last legs anyway, and probably still feels like it is to some degree, like it's part of the late night um ecosystem that feels like it's dying. I don't know if there's anything to do with the fact that like they might not have wanted to get rid of the Daily Show, but and this makes it easier to sort of keep it if rather than not extend Jon Stewart. But not sure that Daily Show will be around in 5 years, but seems like it will be around for another year at least. So
I mean, Jon Stewart got me to start watching it again occasionally. Honestly, the issue is the one time a week is like if it were just a weekly show with Jon Stewart, I'd probably watch it more often, but it gets confusing when it's like, wait, which episode is the one with Jon Stewart? And then sometimes he takes a week off and it's even more confusing. And it's like, yeah.
you know what, the thing that I think for I don't know how many people, I don't even know how many people I know who are like watching the Daily Show, certainly not every day of the week. I consume the Daily Show in the exact same way I consume pretty much any late night show, which is I watch it on YouTube and I watch,
I, That's what I've started doing because it's easier for YouTube to just recommend me the relevant Jon Stewart bits instead of me having to go search for the Jon Stewart episodes.
I often get his like long monologue on my YouTube recommended like on Tuesday morning. I will sometimes watch clips of whatever interview he did if it seems like it was interesting. I don't tend to watch the whole interview, and then I think because I watch like the Daily Show stuff, I then like will occasionally get like a Jordan Klepper hosted segment, or Josh Johnson is one of their new hosts. So I really like, he's a very funny stand-up comedian who's been hosting one night a week. So like I'll sort of like by osmosis, because I will watch the Jon Stewart stuff. And again, not the full episode and not from, Paramount, strictly
Mhm.
from YouTube, and often like a condensed clip that they have chosen to edit. So, I mean, I like late night, but I also feel like I'm not doing anything to help late night stay around because I watch it via YouTube. So, yeah.
What are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the stuff that's been on then.
Yeah, in terms of new stuff, I know that the one thing that was new this week, Taryn, was the Witcher came back in its new
It did.
form.
It
I have
did.
not watched it, and I'm a little bit behind on The Witcher. But I have to tell you, what I saw like pop up was like, am I interested? I really loved the first season, um, and then obviously everything that happened with that show in terms of um, uh, who left? Well, gosh, what's his name? I
Uh,
get them all mixed up.
uh, Henry Cavill
Cavill left. That seemed to be
and
about sort of creative differences that were they couldn't come to
yeah, I
agreement,
think
and then a
like the
Hemsworth dropped in.
the generally accepted story is that Henry Cavill is a huge fan of the books. There's been a lot of deviations. There was a lot of creative sort of like strife between him and the writers, creators of the show, and eventually that led to his departure. And he's now been replaced by Liam Hemsworth, which is I think a lot of people saw as sort of like the death knell of this show, given the fact that Henry Cavill was probably the best part of it, um, and it was already going downhill.
I heard nothing about this until it popped up on my Netflix. Like, oh, it's out. It's like out. So I think I watched seasons 1 and 2, and then I didn't pick up 3. And all
Yep,
the news about it had sort of happened before I think 3 came out. 3, they split it as well into a weird like 3 and 5 episode chunk, and then here's season 4 with Liam Hemsworth, one of the other Hemsworths.
I've heard bad things.
Okay, all right, well, that happens. That happens. Um, I was trying to think of what else was new this week that came. I feel like there was stuff, but I didn't. I don't think I watched much new TV this week at all.
Well, there were some things to catch up on. For nobody wants this season
Oh
two,
yeah,
which I haven't heard anything beyond. Like, I haven't heard it's like really bad or really good. It's just like more of nobody wants this, which I think is fine because people did want it.
yeah. I they did a fair bit of promo. I think like in terms of like marketing stuff around the show. So I you know looks like it. If season one has a 95 score on Rotten Tomatoes, season two has a 78. So it seems like maybe not as good as season one, and maybe but probably still totally watchable. So
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be it's sort of like rose-colored glasses are off. It's not as like new and exciting, but still probably just as decent. Um, but yeah, you're probably not going to watch this like you did the first season, being like, "Wow, this is a lot better than I thought." You're instead going to watch this like, "Is this as good as I remember?"
right, right.
But it'll still be fine, is my
Uh
guess.
there's a
Having
new
not
show.
watched it.
Yeah, there's a new show on Apple TV called Down Cemetery Road.
Yeah,
This stars Emma Thompson in the lead. This was actually Mick Herron's, I believe, his first book. Mick Herron is the guy who wrote the Slough House series, which turned into Slow Horses.
mhm.
And this is sort
Big
of
like
built
spy thriller writer guy.
spy thriller, but basically something happens in a little town. This woman who's the person who's not Emma Thompson, who I do really like in the show,
Ruth
just
Wilson.
Ruth Wilson. She wants to investigate it and then goes and find and gets Emma Thompson, who is a private investigator, to sort of help her. And it's the two of them figuring out what happens. I've seen the first few episodes. I like it. I think it's good. I think it's probably not as good as Slow Horses. I think that they take a swing in the first few episodes, and I think like if you watch the end of the episode and you like it, I think keep going. I think Emma Thompson is good. I think actually Ruth Wilson. I know I like sort of stumbled on her name there, but I think actually she's probably the best part of the show. So,
She's very
um,
good in like
yeah,
everything she does.
yeah. So I like this. I mean, it's yeah, it's Slow Horses. It's not Slow Horses in the sense of it's not as sort of like gritty punk, that sort of like thing, but I like it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's Down Cemetery
Um,
Road.
of course, it's Welcome to Derry. I think has now got 2 episodes out.
Yeah, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I've not watched either one, of course. I haven't watched anything. But I've been hearing all kinds of stuff about it. Welcome to Derry. I've heard it was terrible the first episode, but then it was also like really weird. And they took a big swing, and then some people thought it was great. And then episode two, I guess, was even weirder, and it's maybe even better, and people are liking it, but they're also a little like not sure about it. And so I'm hearing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score, the 82 critic, 80 popcorn meter. So it seems like critics and audiences are sort of like in line with each other. And then again, like 80, 4 to 5 people saying, that they like it. That probably is about right. I think the people who don't like it will really not like it. I think that it probably, if you're to critique it, it's a couple things, which is like it's a little, I don't know. It does have that like sort of um what are the name of the boys in it? They're like I can't remember they're not the Lost Boys. They're not the Lost. Are they the
No,
Lost?
yeah, I
They're
know
the
what you're
Losers Club. They're the
yeah,
Losers Club.
yeah, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So it does have a bit of that energy. I like I like this show. I think that it's I think if you were looking for something that's like in the vein of what I think people were looking to monster like the Ed Gein story, like looking for a horror thing to watch around this time of the year. I think this is a better version of that while still not being like the best show you've ever watched. Like it still is, Pennywise the clown. It's,
Mhm.
it is that. Like so yeah, I think it's kind of fun and good and genuinely I think like I'm surprised. I keep saying it's scary and I don't mean that from the sense like I'm scared watching it. I mean that of like I can't believe it's on just like TV. And I know it's HBO, but some of the stuff for the horror stuff that they're doing, I think is like generally pretty out there. So
Yeah.
yeah, it welcomed to Derry. Not bad. I've seen the first 5 episodes. That's all I got. So I don't know how it ends.
All right. Um, there was one thing I watched. I told Grace this. There's one thing I watched over the last couple of weeks, and that was Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, and then I had to be like, from 1968. You're like, yeah, that's what I watched. Yeah.
It was playing at Regal the day before Halloween, and I was like, "There's my Halloween activity. I'm gonna go watch Rosemary's Baby in theaters."
How was the
Um,
experience of watching Rosemary's Baby in theaters?
so I had actually not watched this movie before. One of the few classic horrors that I had never actually seen. And I was really liking it, but I'm not sure how I feel about it in totality. It's almost 2.5 hours of just misery.
Yeah, it is. I've watched this, I think, a couple years ago. I was doing a lot, maybe could have been last year. I did a lot of horror movies that I had not seen. And I felt like the same thing. I was like, oh boy, this is just like really depressing the whole time. Yeah. I give
And
4 stars, but yeah.
it's one of those things where it's like, unfortunately, this thing has been done so many times since that, like, the concept itself is not fresh enough to have the impact that I'm sure it did at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but it was still so well made. And then there's also the Roman Polanski of it all, of
Yeah,
course.
I know. Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there. But it's definitely a very good movie. I just don't know if I liked it.
So fair. Yeah. Yeah, I watched it I think last year. Let's see. 2 no, 3 years ago now I watched it. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but yeah, it's depressing. Yeah, and I was saying this last week on this Century in Cinema. Lord of the Rings came up, and was talking about when I read the Lord of the Rings books that I felt like I was more interested in them from like a history textbook than a like
Mm.
a history text. I mean, as more as like it was really interesting that there's so many ideas that become D&D and fantasy and all this stuff. But like,
Mhm.
do I think it's the best book ever? Like, no, probably not. But I've seen every iteration of it, good and bad since. So yeah.
Yeah.
I watched a fair number of movies over the last little while, new releases. I'll pull my letterbox to make sure I have this. I watched Bugonia, Taran, which I gotta say I loved. I love
Yeah.
this movie so much, but I love Yorgos. I love Emma Stone. I think this is one of the best Jesse Plemons performance I've seen in a while, and I think he's like extremely good in many things he's in. I love Begonia. The people don't know. The premise is Jesse Plemons plays a character who believes that Emma Stone's character is not human, is an alien, and is going to go to great lengths, basically like been like wrapped up in conspiracy theories to find out whether that's true or not. And it goes from there. I just think it's so I mean, it's weird in the way that I think a lot of Yorgos stuff is, but I think the thing that I like about Yorgos is that I feel like he really goes into one direction and he's in a different thing. Like this is not Poor Things, like at all, you know? So I really liked it. I think I'm higher on it than most people, and I think that the weirdness is going to be what people like butt up against. But I think this is like extremely good, and I would not be surprised to see either Jesse Plemons or Emma Stone get nominated for an Oscar because of their performances in this. I think they're both exceptional in the film.
Yeah. This is the thing I most want to see. I almost decided to see this for Halloween instead of Rosemary's Baby, but I couldn't justify it because it wasn't actually a horror.
Yeah.
Um,
I
what are you
guess
gonna do?
it's not horror. Yeah, it's
I
not.
thought it could come close enough.
You
You
it could
know,
you could have watched this on Halloween and I'd be like, "Oh, that was a great Halloween movie."
right?
So, yeah. Um okay, what did I watched House of Dynamite. I think is probably the next one that most people might have seen because it ended up on Netflix, and this is
Mhm.
a movie about whether there's a nuclear bomb that is on its way to America, and it is about examining some different people as that is happening. Essentially, we live in a house of dynamite, and that it's about to explode. Um, there's
Wow.
a
Idris Elba, Rebecca Ferguson, Jared Harris.
The cast is so great. This is also Catherine Bigelow, who's like Oscar-winning director.
Mhm.
So high hopes for
Yeah,
this
that's
one.
wild.
It premiered at one of the festivals. I can't remember which one. And I feel like had a pretty tepid response, but I was still pretty excited to see this. It has some very weird structural things going on that I think
Mhm.
most people are in agreement that it like really holds the film back from being good. I
It
think
does
that
look like the writer is the weak link in the
yeah,
production of this.
yeah. So the performances are good, but you just because of the way they structure it, which is sort of these like overlapping narratives where you're singularly focused with somebody in this situation where like you can see how that device works in the sense of you would see something from one person's perspective and then you overlap that and now you see it from a different perspective and you're really you're changing the point of view and that can be effective. I think it's totally ineffective in this movie. So I thought that this it was in terms of like a fine Netflix movie. It is what it is, but I have really high hopes for this movie that they didn't quite hit.
And these Netflix movies just pop off though. This released like basically a week ago and it's got 61,000 ratings on
Because
IMDb already.
everybody watches Netflix. Everyone's just like that. I was gonna say this earlier. We were talking about like Netflix. Netflix and YouTube are the two things that I browse. Almost every other streaming platform I have, I like go because I'm about to
Yep.
watch a specific thing, and those are the two that I will like be like, oh yeah, what could I watch? So yeah.
Mm.
I watched Blue Moon as well, which is the Ethan Hawke movie that is about this. Let me get his name. Lorenz Hart, who was a songwriter who mostly worked with Richard and Rogers, and it's about the opening night of Oklahoma, which he did not. Richard Rogers wrote with Hammerstein, so it's like the first play that Richard Rogers goes and makes with somebody else, having all these hits with Hart. It kind of begins to leave Hart behind. Hart, it just seems this is a Linklater movie.
Wow, this is
Margaret
another stacked production. Jeez.
yeah, Margaret Qualley, Bobby Cannavale is really great. Andrew Scott is in this movie. I did like this. I don't know that everyone's going to love this. And there's one very specific thing that if you've seen it will make sense. It's how they portray that Lorenz Hart was not as tall as Ethan Hawke, and it really weirded me out. The whole movie. It's the same week I watched the Lord of the Rings movies though, and I have to say I was like every time they would like zoom out and the hobbits are basically being played by children. I was like, no, I have to pretend that that's not what's happening. This movie is, I think, good, not great. Probably is the way I would categorize this, and it's one of two Linklater movies that are out around this time of year. Nouvelle Vague is another movie that's coming out about the French New Wave, but fun that Hawke and Linklater got back together. I feel like I wanted to love this more than I did, but I think it's pretty good. So
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
yeah.
like Bigelow, Linklater. These are
Yeah,
like two of my favorite directors, like over a decade ago, and now they're just kind of releasing like movies that I hadn't even heard of yet, and they're just kind of like okay, and it's like, man.
it's a great time for movies right now. This is what I mean. Like I feel like there's so many. So I'll tell you the best movie I love Bugonia. Second best movie I saw was If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And this is Rose Byrne plays the mom of a daughter with a chronic condition. This is very much a movie about motherhood, directed and written by Mary Bronstein, who her own child has a chronic condition that they dealt with, and so it's very much like from her own life. Was inspiration. Conan O'Brien plays a role in this movie as well. Um, I really like this. I like this like a lot, and this is a movie that is not easy to watch. I found it very difficult to watch, and by the end of it, had to more so walk away being like, "Oh, I really appreciate what that movie was doing." These shots of her of the camera being so close to her face is kind of what the movie is like for like 90% of the movie.
Mm.
It is yeah, it's about the burden of motherhood, specifically this mother who has a daughter um, with a medical issue that sort of the mom also has to deal with. And there's just some like really interesting choices that get made in the movie um, that I think ultimately work. And I think you sort of have to go in. Like I really didn't know. I'd heard great things about this movie. Like it played at TIFF and I wasn't able to catch it. And some people said like that was my favorite movie of the year. So I had a really high expectations going in. And it is weird and sort of off-putting in a way, but that's sort of like the point of it as well. So I quite like this and would highly recommend folks watch it, but also just make sure you're in kind of like the right headspace for it as well. So that's If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You.
Oh.
Yeah. Those are the
Well,
movies I watched, Taran. Yeah.
those are the movies. There is one coming out, I think, this week that I'm kind of interested. I actually haven't seen Prey yet, but I keep seeing the previews for Predator: Badlands, from Dan Trachtenberg,
Mhm.
who did 10 Cloverfield Lane. I think it's 10, as well as, of course, Prey. Um, and it's probably going to be fine.
Predator Badlands? Yeah, I haven't really heard people's reaction to it. Like I haven't seen any critic reviews or anything. I don't know if they're holding off on that or what, but yeah, we'll see. It looks kind of fun. I like
Yeah.
is it Elle Fanning?
Elle Fanning,
Dakota.
yeah.
Yeah, it looks fun. This looks great. I love
Yeah.
Prey, so I'm excited for this. There's a couple other movies coming out this weekend. There is a Nuremberg. If you're really
Mm.
into the war, this is how it's built. Biography. I'm sorry, I can't say that word.
Biography.
Biography. Yeah. Sometimes I can't say documentary either. Biography, drama, history, thriller, war are all of the things attached to this. This is about the Nuremberg trials. This cast is pretty stacked as well. Russell Crowe, Rami Malek, Michael Shannon, Richard E. Grant, John Slattery, Leah Woodall. Yeah. Um, Andres Peachman from Dark. This is I've heard pretty good things coming out of the festivals from this, so I would like to see this. I couldn't see it at the festival. And then the other one is Die My Love, which is a Jennifer Lawrence Robert
Mm.
Pattinson movie that comes out uh, this week. Yeah. Um,
Yep.
so a new Jennifer Lawrence movie.
And of course, I mentioned this before. Pluribus starts this week. This is the new Vince Gilligan show with Rhea Seehorn. Um, and I have been, outside of those very small teasers, avoiding any information I can about this because I just want to watch it because it's Vince Gilligan. And he, of course, if you don't remember, made Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. And this is his next thing.
There is some super praise out there from critics who've seen this. So I guess I feel bad kind of saying that because I feel like it's like set my expectations and I feel like it's like not going to be able to deliver on them. But I'm excited for this. I'm very excited. When they released a trailer earlier this year, it was like a teaser trailer. It had a
Mhm.
phone number and you could sign up for, and when you called it, it would ask you if you wanted to be on a text message. You want to get text message alerts. I didn't know what it was, and I was also like, I think I wrote the hub for this show on Parade, so I signed up for it. And every once in a while, I just get a cryptic text message. I believe Rhea Soren's character's name is Carol, and they're just basically like texting Carol to join them in whatever they want to do. I have no idea what the show is about. But every once in a while, I just get a wake up to a cryptic, like it doesn't tell me anything about the show, Taryn, but they just text me. So that's been a fun little marketing campaign that they did.
Well,
Yeah.
it's exciting stuff. I definitely I'm gonna have to figure out if I can watch it, if I can watch it on my broken TV, or what I'm gonna do, but or if I'm gonna wait, but we'll see. Famously, I always waited to watch Breaking Bad episodes when I was like in high school, and my friends hated it because they couldn't talk to me about the episodes until I watched it. But
On this last Thursday, I got a text that says, "It feels like we're doing all the talking here, Carol. Do you have any questions for us?" That's what they texted me. So
I
yeah,
guess you've never texted back.
I've never texted back. I have not.
They're doing all the talking.
Yeah, I don't know if I guess I've never tried that. If that's part of the marketing camp, I presumed you could not do it. Monday, October 6th, they said, "Hope you're enjoying the flight, Carol. May we offer you a drink?" That's what they said. So I have no idea what the show's about, but it seems to. Yeah, I'm so interested in this, and
Yeah.
obviously Vince Gilligan. Yeah, he's like 2 for 2, right? Did he create anything else?
Yeah.
He was on like the X Files, I think, right?
Well, yeah, he wrote for like the X Files, and what else did he do? It was some other stuff.
He wrote Night Stalker, The Lone Gunman, Harsh Realm, but yeah, in
He did
terms of
write on the Hancock movie, which
that's fine. That's fine. You know, that's
he
fine.
wasn't the sole writer.
Yeah. I didn't know he created a show that came out in 2015 called Battle Creek. Did not know that, but that's fine. So he's basically 2 for 2.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the other thing, Taran, just very, I mean, I have to tell you the other reason that I feel like to the audience, obviously the Blue Jays uh, are playing as well, but in addition to obviously Survivor and everything else on the reality TV and watch, it's the British TV right now has been exceptional in terms of
Mm.
just to give a shout. If you're not watching Celebrity Traders, I feel like you should. It's so hard. I mean, I feel like I have it not to everybody who's playing, but I feel like I watch a lot of British panel shows and comedy shows, so I feel pretty tuned into the people who are playing, and I wonder whether my recommendation will be. But you are watching this as well. I think it's the best thing on TV right now. This is my
It's great.
opinion. It's
And
so good.
I'm not like a traders guy generally. I'm not a huge fan of the show. But like I started watching Traders Canada, obviously for Kevin
Yes,
Jacobs
yes, and
and
Omer.
Omer. Um, and immediately it was such a stark contrast for me how much better the Celebrity UK Trace has been in terms of its storytelling, its editing, and the cast is really great. I knew of course, Stephen Fry and Celia and Jonathan Ross and Joe Wilkinson and a few of the others here, Nick Mohammed. But a lot of these people were kind of like new to me, and even the people I did know, I didn't really know a whole lot of. And it's just been great. It's just a good show.
I think it's something to the credit of I think the Canadian one too is like I agree that like Celebrity Traders they found the most captivating people like in the UK. They were willing to do it. It's apparently like I think like it's like sort of breaking records in terms of how much it's being watched in the UK. So they're obviously able to pull from big names based on how successful the regular version had been. So you know they casted extremely well, but it's a huge I don't know, like a lot of to them that the show is as good as it is, despite like the format's definitely broken of the trade,
Mhm.
of the traders, and yet this is the best thing that I watch every week is the 2 episodes that drop, and unfortunately there's only one more, but I highly recommend people go back and watch it. The new season of Taskmaster, Taran, I don't know if you're keeping up with that as well. That has been really good, and I thought they're gonna have a really tough time because season 20 was so good like top 3 season I think but the cast has sort of been like surprisingly delightful and kind of like all Taskmaster is good Taskmaster, but it's been really exceptional this season. They just announced that they're doing 3 Christmas specials. They're doing the New Year's treat, but they're doing 2 episodes of it, and they're also doing Champion of Champions. That would be 4. So the last 5 winners. So much Taskmaster in our
I
lives. So
finally
good.
just started series 10, I think,
Okay,
which
yeah,
is
I keep
the
forgetting you're
COVID one.
behind. Yeah, tough, a little tough to be in the COVID times.
I
Yeah.
was like, why are they so far apart? It's so weird.
Yeah, and like they do have the audience laughing, but it was all like the audience laughter was captured after. Like they were obviously
Mm.
weren't in the studio, so that's a little tough, but you know. Again, all Taskmaster is good Taskmaster, so yeah.
I will also mention Physical Asia has dropped the first 4 episodes on Netflix. I'm a big Physical 100 guy. I like the show. It's a Korean show where they took 100 athletes and then they just do like an elimination style, like big, almost like Squid Game esque sort of setup where they're just in some random like cool looking warehouse. Um, and they get eliminated in en masse. But doing these very physical challenges, looking for the best physique. And now they have Physical Asia, which is 8 countries that 7 of which are Asian countries, and then Australia are competing in as teams in the similar format. And so I've been watching this one, and it's been very fun.
Okay, fun. Another Netflix hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm covering Physical Asia and Traders Celebrity UK on my Patreon. If people want to check that out, I basically film myself in the episode and I react to it and I pause and I analyze fun stuff like that. Um, Anything else, Grace?
No, in terms of television and movies, yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, that's what we have for you then this week. Thank you so much for joining us. And anything else to plug, Grace?
Yeah, just writing on Parade and Popeyes to check things out, doing dark recaps and survivor recaps over on Popeyes, so check those out. This Century in Cinema, watched Fellowship of the Ring last week, and this week I'll be doing Past Lives with Ariel joining. And then also, this is the first time I'm going to announce it, I'll have some social media stuff coming out, but on November 15th and 16th, so in a couple, that's next Saturday, not this Saturday, I'm going to be doing a 24-hour live stream on my Twitch, Taran and Grace, to raise money. The camp I went to as a camper and worked at for many years, they need new toilets, Taran, and it's a camp for children with type 1 diabetes. So a lot of kids have high blood sugar and you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And so they need these like upgraded facilities. I've been upgraded in a long time. So I'm doing a 24-hour live stream to raise funds for that, hopefully playing games and having guests all along the way, but would love any support that people can send to help fix the toilets up at Camp Huronda, the camp I went to, and I say changed my life. So doing that.
There you go. Well, make sure
Yeah.
you check that out. Thank you all for joining us here on the podcast, and we'll see you next time.